connecting security solutions with security leaders. Security you should know starts now.
Welcome to Security You Should Know. I'm your host, Rich Straffolino. Today, we're talking with CoreView and what they're doing in the wide world of cloud and application security. Now, the problem that they're addressing in that space is very specific. They are addressing the problem of resilience with Microsoft 365. We all know it, we all depend on it, but resilience is still an open question. Helping us get some answers to why this is a problem and figure out more about what CoreView is doing is Davi Ottenheimer, the principal over at Flying Penguin, and Will Gregorian, CISO at Galileo Medical. Will, I want to start with you here. Why is Microsoft 365 resilience, why are we solving a problem there? Didn't Microsoft figure all this out?
Microsoft never figured it out. They left it up to the practitioner to figure it out. Have you ever logged into the Microsoft admin dashboard? There's probably about 1,050 different ways you can configure one thing.
I mean, some people appreciate choice, but I could understand why that would introduce some challenges there. All right. Davi, what about from your perspective here? Why are we still struggling with this resilience question on what is a cornerstone of so many organizations?
Microsoft left security till the last minute on a lot of this stuff. And then when they did get around to it, they were caught behind their own flow. So they're releasing stuff faster than they could possibly catch up, which just leaves it to the community to figure out, like they've always done. It's sort of in their DNA to say the market will figure it out while they struggle. The administrator panel being complicated is just one symptom of that. But once you get into each piece of the admin console, it's even more complicated. Active Directory was supposed to simplify our world, and it made it incredibly complicated when Unix always had just user group public. It's their DNA.
You're making my former Linux hippie heart happy, but let's face it, the world runs on 365 for so many of us, and that's why we need to be talking with Andrea Sivieri, the Chief Product and Technology Officer over at CoreView. Andrea, help us out here. We need to answer three essential questions before we dig even deeper here. How do you explain the value of what CoreView is doing to a CEO? What does your solution do? What does it not do? And what is the pricing model?
Sure. So first of all, hey guys, nice to be here. Thank you for having me. Will and Davi already positioned it pretty well. The big mistakes, in my opinion, out there are mainly two. One, people still speaks about Microsoft 365 as it is one app. I mean, I use email, I use Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365 is actually the neural system that your business is working on. So if that goes down, your business goes down. The second big mistake is think of Microsoft 365 as a glass of water. Most of the players out there are focusing on the water, which is the data. Water is your data, your emails, your messages, everything. But almost nobody thinks about the glass. And the glass is your configuration, the shape of your tenant, the permissions, the data points. All of that is what we do. We secure your Microsoft 365 configuration side of the things. And the good news is that your CEO already knows all of that. Your CEO knows that if Microsoft 365 goes down, the business goes down. So I would frame it upward with the shared responsibility model in plain language. Microsoft keeps the platform running. How your tenant is configured, who has access, and whether you can recover it after something goes wrong, that is on you, totally on you. And Will mentioned, have you ever logged in to your Microsoft 365 admin? There are 25 of them. All different. And we are just bringing order into that world. In terms of what we are and what we're not, so we are on operational control plane for Microsoft 365 Resilience. Full visibility into in how your tenant is really configured, the controls to govern it, and the ability to recover it when something breaks or goes bad. That's what we do. What we not do, we're not a CM, we're not a endpoint tool, we're not a Microsoft replacement. We are making Microsoft running in a secure and resilient way. Pricing model, I mean, it's happily boring, I would say, meaning that no surprises. We are pricing per user. So we grow as your business grow. No, tokens at the end of the month currently, no, extra usage fees and that kind of stuff. That our pricing model is still very simple.
All right. So we've gotten a taste. And as a standing rule of security, you should know, anytime someone says we're not a SIM, that makes me happy because very few people should think they're a SIM. So I'm very happy to hear that. But Davi, let me come with you here. What are the questions do you have about what CoreView is doing here?
Well, I like the framing here where you're securing the container. I mean, the glass is the container, and that you're not competing with these other tools. You're trying to make the tools better. But I do wonder, how do you get ahead of the train? Because it's already left the station. Microsoft's leaving and it's out there, and they can turn off access. They can change the APIs. They can do whatever they want. So how do you keep ahead of the changes that are coming down the pipe that you have no control over and leave customers in the dark?
So it's a good question. We are using pretty much everything that Microsoft is offering to Excel players. All the Graph APIs span a plethora of PowerShell scripts and tools, plus the audit logs analysis and so forth. So we are trying to rely on everything, and we really have our core experiences keeping the pace with Microsoft. Actually, your question brings me to another side, which is, if you think about it, Microsoft is actually validating the problem existing, because they're moving the very first steps on, helping users at least orientating inside the configuration pane. And that is a good sign for us, because that means that the problem exists and they need help for solving it. The train keep moving, and it's not just about Microsoft, it's about also the environment where Microsoft is deployed, so the Azure configuration and so forth. Our core experience is keeping the pace.
Will, jump in there. What other questions do you have about what CoreView is doing here?
So assume that, I'm part of the security team. I'm evaluating your product. What are the highest value targets that you would recommend that I start paying attention to?
I would say that, first of all, it's identity. In this moment, the identity drift and tampering is definitely one of the most exposed entry point in a tenant. So that is definitely number one. Number two is the least privileged approach. In the Microsoft standard world, if you need to manage, an email group, you need an admin account. And that is a big risk, because if that account gets hacked, everything is exposed. We do true privilege. So we provide the users with just the least privilege they need in the moment they need it, and then we remove it. Also, we are able to segment logically the tenant in many different ways. We call it virtual tenant, and that is a big differentiating point, because we're able to, for example, let me do an extreme example, Will. I can create a virtual tenant that has just the people named Will in the tenant. That will restrict dramatically the span of action of every admin. So this is how we secure it.
So is this the concept of sandboxing? How does that work?
Not exactly. We create a virtual tenant, and from that moment, an admin assigned to the virtual tenant has the span of control just over that segment of the tenant. It could be geographical. Think of it as a global tenant, and I want just people managing Italian users to manage that single part of the tenant. Think of it, for example, in department. I can make a tenant that just manages finance people, or I can make a tenant that has even fancier rules, and we've seen a lot of that out there. Remember, Microsoft is pushing for consolidation. So they want you to go eventually in a single big ass tenant. Sorry for the French word. And instead, you want to segment it and make sure that the span of control is limited.
It's an interesting concept. I haven't seen that before. These tenants, what do they look like? Are they actual Microsoft tenants, or how does it actually mechanically work?
On our end, the logic segments the tenant and makes sure that every command and every action, every workflow that you trigger from the platform is executed just against the tenant that belongs to that class of users or assets or configurations. So it's a real-time operation that propagates the action just to the relevant data points, let me call it like that.
That ultimately means that, you have quite a bit of privileges over the Microsoft tenant itself, right?
Correct. That's exactly right.
I'm a little curious that Entra doesn't do this. I mean, I know that's sort of the whole premise of what we started on, but Entra is specifically designed to do this. And Entra ID P2, I would think, covers it. So are you fixing their configuration gaps? Is it too hard for people to use Entra properly? Is that what's going on here, more than the identity drift is something they're not touching?
Exactly right. We are making the Entra ability way more granular. First of all, so the number of configuration points that you can manage through us is bigger. We can make it more resilient because you can dynamically change them. So we're pretty much a layer on top of Entra.
That makes me think, you're bigger, you can see more, but how do you know you can see all? Because if you don't know what Microsoft knows, there's the known knowns and then there's the unknown knowns. So yeah, where do you get into the territory that you can't see what they can see, but you call yourself more coverage?
I think the key answer to that is correlating data points. So yes, maybe you don't receive a single signal about the change, but if you correlate all the audit logs and everything behind the scenes coming from multiple sources on the tenant, for example, Intune configuration, Entra ID, audit logs, custom actions, and so forth, you will be able to reconstruct a story that maybe Microsoft doesn't offer on their UIs.
The data you're collecting is from your customers, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's selection bias. So you get customers who have trouble, and then you select your data from the customers who have trouble. How do you see the customers you don't have, and they're not having trouble with Entra? How do you get, and the territory you don't see because you don't have customers that are in other territory?
Well, I mean, you're supposed through our platform to see your tenant configuration. So that single customer configuration. We allow you to take a snapshot pretty much of everything you set up. And we detect anything that changed from that. So it's on you to define what is the golden state. We are offering some out-of-the-box standard configuration. For example, we offer CIS 6.0 as the standard baseline for security. And if you drift from that, we flag it. So we see that from the customer data.
It's an impossible question in some sense. Like, how do you see what you can't see? But I'm not trying to be coy. I think it really is a problem. Like, how do you know the data you're working with doesn't have blindness in it? And you're going to be caught off guard the same way your customers will be caught off guard because you're looking at them and they're looking at you, but no one's actually looking at what Microsoft's doing.
I think it's a fair point, and the straight and very honest answer is that if something is invisible, it's invisible to us as well. I think that our span of control is just augmented because maybe one single thing that is not visible, just looking at one single data point, could become visible if you cross and cross correlate multiple data.
The other thing that jumps out at me as you described two ends of the same elephant for me, which is the trunk end, which is you see drift, and then the tail end, you see privilege, identity drift and privilege escalation. It's identities and getting them scoped right. That's the same problem. So are you really looking at two things or one thing?
Well, identity to us is a set of configurations. In that sense, pretty much identity is a data point, an aggregated data point that we control. It's not much different from other. I think identity has a very peculiarities, I would say, especially because it's very exposed to the final users. So at the end of the day, we're looking at anything that is changing without you knowing it on top of your tenant. Actually, this brings me to stressing another thing, which is we let the customers on board of the platform actually configuring what matters to them. So we are very much pushing for avoiding false positives, which means that you can configure the platform to make sure that what matters to you, it's actually what you want to monitor and be advised if something changes.
On the change, how? You mentioned this before too. So you say it's continuous. That's the impression I got is you can always see what's changing. You're trying to keep up with what's going on. But there's got to be snapshots or some point in time you're missing. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It can't obviously be totally continuous. Can you reveal what that is? Like, or would I be exposing the time people could do things that you wouldn't see them?
I think it depends on many factors. We are able to ingest a huge amount of data in a very short time, and we are able to prioritize what truly is very dangerous out there. So it is not T0, but I think that you can detect drift in a matter of a few moments depending on how big is your tenant, what is the mass of actions that are being executed, and so forth. I would call it near real time, but yeah, we're closing to that.
You mentioned snapshots. What does the composition of the snapshots look like? What's the retention history? What would it look like in terms of like practical scenarios? How far can I go back?
Virtually speaking, you can go back indefinitely because we retain pretty much your historical data. We have behind us, I think, 11 years of story from our customers. I think the true question is, what is the relevant data that you want to keep under your control? The UI is pretty configurable, so you can go as back as you go on. And maybe this could be shown also during the demo. I don't have like an exact number for that because, again, I think it depends on the magnitude of the data. But virtually speaking, it's indefinite.
In terms of configuration management, because we are talking about resilience here, is this all ClickOps or does it actually have like a form of infrastructure as code? So do we just log into your tenant dashboard and configure things through clicking, or is there some concept of like revision control, history management, the whole 9 yards?
You can use the UI. We are accelerating a lot with our AI system, which is called CoreView, which will let you also do configurations and actions through a human language interface. We don't have at the moment a Kubernetes-like configuration. And, I think that this is mostly because you really need to configure it with the customer I mean, we're simplifying the onboarding as much as we can, but at the end of the day, it's all about making sure that you're catching the right components of their configuration that they want to be informed about. Again, as I was saying before, the false positive in this market is one of the major risks you can get. So that is why the configuration takes very much attention on our end.
All right, Andrea, what's one thing we didn't ask about that we need to know?
I think that one important thing that now in the AI era is not maybe not that fancy or fashion, but needs to be pointed out is the scalability of the system. With the AI, we are seeing a lot of companies popping out and being able to build something that looks similar to what we do. But the scale of the systems we are able to manage, it's what differentiates us and makes us really enterprise grade. We manage the second biggest tenant in the world. The Microsoft is 2.7 million users. And again, drift detecting, as Davey and Will were asking, detecting drifts, configuration changes, and backing up configuration for that number of users, it's a very different job from doing it for, let's say, a small business and so forth. We help the whole range of business from small business to enterprise, but when you get above a certain number of users, it's really hard to do this job correctly and in near real time, as we were saying.
Well, that's just about it for this episode of Security You Should Know. To learn more, head on over to CoreView.com. If you have any feedback for this show, please send them over to us, feedback@CISOseries.com. We always love to hear from our listeners. Thanks to Davi and Will for helping us learn more about CoreView. Digging into the details, the more we get into snapshots, the happier I get. And thank you, Andrea, for your time and being game to answer all of these questions. And thank you for listening to Security You Should Know.
That wraps up another episode of Security You Should Know. If you like this program, please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave us a review. All companies showcased on this program are sponsors of CISO Series. If your company would like to be spotlighted and interviewed by our security leaders, go to our contact page on CISOseries.com or just email us at info@CISOseries.com. Thank you for listening to Security You Should Know, connecting security solutions with security leaders.